Tell me about yourself. Why do we love asking it so much?
Let's get
No
weird.
judgment, shoot.
Who is this person? My mind was somewhere else. Say what type of professional you are.
We're not particularly good listeners. That'll be a huge problem.
What's your rationale behind sticking with tradition?
Put people at ease. What questions they should ask and what questions maybe you shouldn't ask.
Who are you again?
So you ready for your big job interview?
Yeah, it should be a total breeze.
Next.
Looks like it's my turn.
Good luck.
Well, your resume looks great. You went to a great college. You have all the right experience and skills for this role. So, why don't you tell me about yourself?
Oh, great. I was actually expecting this question.
What? Why?
Well, studies show that 93% of hiring managers ask it.
Well, did you prepare something in advance, or are you going to tell me something authentic?
Authentic. Of course.
Go ahead and tell me about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Boston. My dad ran a laundromat, and my mom worked as
How about we fast forward, I don't know, a few decades?
Right, well, I recently worked at Benningham, Shaw, and Wookie.
You left BSW. They're the number one firm on the planet. What sane person does that?
I just wanted to change.
We'll take your application under consideration. And by the way, what do you keep looking at?
Oh, nothing. Thanks.
Next.
Hi, I'm Jill Wiltfong, Chief Marketing Officer for Korn Ferry, and this is Briefings, our deep dive into topics that corporate leaders need to care about. What are your weaknesses? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? HR pros have been asking these questions in job interviews for years. Some, particularly Gen Zers, question how relevant they are to a job. But more importantly, hiring managers say even veteran executives fumble them. And that leaves us wondering why. Why are they not prepared? And does that lack of preparation reveal the very thing that HR teams are trying to assess? So today, let's look at the one question we are sure you're going to get on your next job interview. The question that is asked, get this, in 93% of all interviews, tell me about yourself. Before we start, if you're watching us on YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to let us know your thoughts on this topic. I'm joined today by Madeline Mann, career strategist and creator of Self-Made Millennial. Through her social media coaching platform, she's helped millions of viewers hone their job interview skills, so it's a real treat to have her with us here today. Madeline, thanks for joining us.
It's so good to be here, Jill.
So we're hyper-focusing on this one often dreaded question, tell me about yourself. As I mentioned off the top, it's a favorite among hiring managers, but it actually has no direct relevance to any particular job requirement or skill. So why do we love asking it so much?
Here's the reason they ask it, is it really is more of that softball, softball question where let's get into the conversation. Let's start off the call. It gets them because they are pivoting from another meeting. They want to get a focus on, okay, who is this person? My mind was somewhere else. Just catch me up really quickly. Who are you again? And that is the piece I think a lot of people get wrong, is they think of this question as the main event when it's really a simple appetizer just to start us off.
We're going to talk about what you should say or could say. But first, you've got some pretty funny examples of how not to respond to this question. And I'd love to start there. What does a bad response sound or look like?
Well, a lot of people think that they should talk about their lives, where they're from, I was one of 4 children, or I, did this in high school, and then I went to college and I did this. And on the surface, it sounds like that is exactly what they're asking. Tell me about yourself. No. They're actually asking, tell me why I'm interviewing you. Tell me why you are relevant to this position. Tell me why you're relevant to me. And so when people start getting into what I call autobiography syndrome, where we start telling our whole life story, it veers off and people get a little bit too detailed, either about personal information or even just too detailed about their career. That is when you really lose the interviewer.
We're not generally comfortable in an office setting, I would say.
I get cooped up.
I won't go into an office that's ever been used before.
I am no good before 11 a.m.
I also get headaches from computers, so I can't be around them for too long.
I take stuff.
I need to have someone go up and down with me in the elevator.
I have a weakness for sweets.
Other weaknesses? We're slow learners, and we're not particularly good listeners. That'll be a huge problem.
We're also slow learners.
That's a scene from the comedy Step Brothers in which Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, of course, say all the wrong things about themselves in a job interview. Madeline, what those two probably really needed was you, because you actually have a beautiful formula for how to tackle this question. Can you give us a brief overview of how that works?
You answer this question using 3 parts. The first part is say what type of professional you are. So for example, if it's me, I might say I am a human resources leader with experience at growing technology companies. Something like that. The second piece you want to do is to focus on your highlights. I want you to reach into your more recent roles and pick out a few highlights that are going to be especially interesting to the interviewer. So if you say, well, in my most recent role, I had X title where I was responsible for blah, blah, and I achieved X. The final piece is to say why this role is the best next step for you. Companies want people who want them. So if you can immediately put in their brain how you've thought about why this opportunity is the best next step, already you're a step ahead of the other candidates.
Obviously, it's best if you can tailor your answer toward the job you're applying for, which is what you're talking about here. But sometimes your current role and experience doesn't really match the gig that you're going after. And in those cases, you've talked about finding a through line between the role you have and the one you're aiming for. Can you elaborate on what that means?
What you need to see is exactly how does your previous experience connect to what you're going for next? Because you do not want to put it in the hands of the interviewer to connect those dots. What you want to do then is, let's say you are in a software engineer role and you're looking to pivot into project management, but still in software. You're going to be managing software projects. Instead of saying, I'm a software engineer who has worked at X companies, you'd say, maybe I'm a technology professional, or I'm a software professional, or something like that. Or even if you have done project management tasks, but maybe not even held that title, you could even frame yourself as a project management professional if you really have actually done those things professionally. So it's really about making sure that you are translating that experience so that the hiring team goes, okay, perfect. This all makes clear sense. You're the person we want to move forward with.
All right, Madeline, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
So we've drilled deep into the top interview question. When we return, we'll take a step back and look at the interview process from the company side of things. Is it time for firms to shake things up? Stay tuned.
Hi, and welcome to This Week in Leadership. I'm Rupak Bhattacharya, and here's a quick look at what else is happening in business.
Not hiring Gen Z.
More than 1 in 3 UK Gen Z job candidates believe they were discriminated against while applying for work, compared to only 12% of older job seekers who made the same complaint. Experts say part of the issue stems from companies not providing enough feedback to candidates as to why they weren't selected.
Fear that they're going to lose their job.
A third of employees fear losing their job before finding a new one, up from 24% in spring of 2023. Contributing factors to their anxiety include recent pessimistic U.S. jobs reports, significant fluctuations in the stock market, and a marked increase in the time it takes the unemployed to find new jobs.
Hybrid work is here to stay.
Only 34% of CEOs expect workers to be in the office 5 days a week during the next 3 years. That's a precipitous drop from 62% in the same survey last year. Yet despite leaders' increasing acceptance of hybrid work, experts say many organizations still haven't perfected their hybrid work arrangements. For more insights on business and leadership, head to kornferry.com/insights. Now back to Jill and our episode, Tell Me About Yourself. Answers.
We're going to ask you a few questions that some of our candidates find a little bit odd.
Let's get no weird. Judgment, shoot. You're shrunken down to the size of nickels and dropped to the bottom of a blender. What do?
With us now is Maria Amato, a Korn Ferry senior client partner who works closely with the leaders of major companies to help them understand and improve upon the employee experience, which, of course, all starts with a job interview. Maria, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure.
That last clip was from the movie The Internship, where Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson have to answer a really ridiculous question right off the bat. We spent the first part of this interview discussing the popular "tell me about yourself" question that hiring managers often start with. And you've actually argued that firms are better off going in that direction than something more outlandish like what we just saw there in that clip. What's your rationale behind sticking with tradition here, Maria?
I think in the very first few minutes of an interview, one of your important jobs as the interviewer is to put people at ease. And starting with an outrageous question that makes people feel uncomfortable could just set them off on the wrong tone for the rest of the interview and not set them up to do their best, which you really want to do.
Looking more critically at the interview process, you've mentioned that bias can be a major factor. 4 in 10 women, for example, say they've encountered gender-biased or inappropriate questions during a job interview. How can companies get around this seemingly persistent and challenging issue?
It's really a tough one because I think most of the time people really don't intend to be biased, but it can happen even when you least intend it. And so this is a situation where I think there is nothing like a little bit of training to help people understand what questions they should ask and what questions maybe you shouldn't ask, even though it seems like it's coming from a good and genuine place.
There are two main distinctions between the two different types of AI interviews. AI-led interviews, you might be presented with a question in text on a screen, and then you're sort of staring at yourself and recording your answers into a box. But that will then be submitted to a human, a sentient being, who will evaluate your responses. Then there are interviews that are totally automated, and even your response is evaluated by an AI bot or an algorithm. It means that qualities like likability and sociability, which can get candidates pretty far in an interview process, won't matter as much.
That's CBS Money Watch reporter Megan Cerullo talking about the rise of AI interviews. Maria, 4 in 10 companies have been projected to use AI interviews this year. Getting a job these days is really hard enough, but trying to impress an AI bot in order to get a meeting with a human seems like it's throwing an entirely new challenge into the mix. What do you think? Do AI interviews, is that in the right direction for companies to be going in, or would you maybe steer people in a different direction?
There's a couple of challenges with the AI interview. One is, if you're just sitting by yourself talking to an AI robot in a box, it's really hard to convey that energy. Now here when I'm talking to you, Jill, I think our energy is playing off of each other. It would be so much harder if I were just here in a room by myself and trying to convey all of the enthusiasm that I have for this topic. The second piece of advice that I have for an employer is think about the experience, though, that you're creating for the candidate. So that candidate, whether they go on to become an employee for you and they have to think back to that cold, sterile room that they sat in when that was their first meaningful interaction with you as an employer, if it leaves them feeling like you didn't care about them enough to even provide a human to talk to them, that might not be the best experience for your candidates.
The last question before I let you go, you've mentioned in the past kind of this growing trend that firms are increasingly hiring now for skills versus experience. Can you give me an example of what that looks like?
Yeah, well, typically in the past, we have hired more for experience. And so an interview question might be something like, how long were you at this position? Or what sorts of things did you do as a part of this role? Whereas if you're hiring for skills, you're recognizing the fact that someone may have been in a position for 5 years, someone else may have been there for a shorter period of time, but actually learned more. And so if you're interviewing for skills, you want to ask for examples of how would you deal with this kind of a situation or that kind of a situation, and pick up on what they're sharing to see are they if you're looking for skills like camaraderie, the ability to deal with other people. Are you hearing that in the answers or are you not? And so that doesn't really depend on how long someone has been in a position or what degrees they may have or may not have. So it's a really different style of interviewing that more organizations are interested in, but I would say that's still a pretty cutting edge trend.
Perfect. Maria, thank you for such a good conversation today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
The executive producer of Briefings is Jonathan Dahl. Today's episode was produced by Rupak Bhattacharya, Nadira Putri, and Teresa Allen, and it was edited by Jaron Henry McRae. It contains reporting by Russell Perlman, Ariane Cohen, and Peter Loria. Our video segment contains original artwork by Fraser Milton, Haley Kennel, Jonathan Pink, and Sasha Kotschik. Don't forget to read our magazine, available at newsstands and at kornferry.com/briefings. That's it for Korn Ferry Briefings. I'm Jill Wiltfong. See you next time. I'm going to sit for a moment. Oh, you can still see me. Oh, I look so tiny down here.